when I was younger, a lot of times I would look at people like, what can I get from them? And I think that's what really hurt me in the long run, in the sense that like that's like the wrong mindset to go into things. And I think we've all been there. We're like, okay, if I'm friends with this person, I can get here, I can get this, especially in ministry where there's sometimes like a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Like, well, if I get in with this person, like I can go sit in the green room.
Yeah.
Like,
or trying to network to meet that one that's going to get you to.
Yeah. Hey there, welcome to the CA podcast. I'm Chad and I'm with
Lex. Hey.
Yep. So, all right. So today we'll talk about like relationships in ministry. And so one thing, you know, is we've both been in ministry. You've been in ministry probably longer than me, but we've both been in ministry for a while, right?
Right.
And so I know a lot of times, you know, we want things to kind of materialize fast and we want to see like progress, right? Like we want to see like stuff happen in
like
our
right
lives.
Away.
Yeah, right away. In our lives in ministry, like we want to see things happen, but a lot of times things take time.
Yes.
And one big thing that takes a lot of time is relationship building.
Yes.
Right. And I think I've been there and you can share, but like there's sometimes where like you'll have a relationship with somebody or a mutual friend or something like that. And then you look 10 years down the road and you're like, I'm best friends with this person.
Yeah.
Or you start out best friends with somebody in ministry and everything. You're doing things together, you know, 4 or 5 years, you're doing things. And then like you don't talk to them for the next 6 years.
You're like strangers and you're like, how did we even get here?
Yeah. So how do you process that? How have you dealt with that? What are some stories you can share about that?
Man, like you were just saying, the friends that you least expect end up being the ones that are like the friends that you're with forever. And then the ones that you thought would be the ride or die, they end up being the ones that fall off. And you're like, how did we do everything together and then become strangers?
Yep.
And so in my life personally, I was that person that I was friends with everyone. Everyone was my best friend.
Right.
Lance is like, not everyone's your best friend. I'm like, we have that in common. You're my best friend. And so I think that got me in trouble a lot of times because I trusted too fast and then, you know, ended up. But with friendships in the Lord, I feel like what the enemy meant for harm, it always turns out to be good.
Yeah.
And so in my life personally, with friends, the ones that did end up badly ended up helping me bridge the gap for another relationship.
Yes.
And then it was like a mutual friend that led to another one.
Yeah.
And then like the reason why we're here in Parkersburg was from a mutual friend that helped us make a relationship with someone and that led us here.
And that's even crazy because like, so that happens for you guys. Then y'all have Vinny, right? And he comes up here. Then I was at a church that Vinny was serving at. And then I end up coming up here.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's funny because like, I think sometimes we don't realize how relationships that we have with others can affect our friends' lives.
Yeah.
Because like literally by that mutual, you guys get connected here, get connected to Vinny. Then I come up here. And then now my family's coming up here. And it's like, it's so funny because just that one little mutual relationship turned into all of this.
Yes.
And I think, you know, and one thing too is like, we never know where friendships are going to take us and things like that. And I think a lot of times, like where I've seen it is when I was younger, a lot of times I would look at people like, what can I get from them?
Right.
And I think that's what really hurt me in the long run, in the sense that like, that's like the wrong mindset to go into things. And I think we've all been there. We're like, okay, if I'm friends with this person, I can get here, I can get this, especially in ministry where there's sometimes like a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Like, well, if I get in with this person, like I can go sit in the green room.
Yeah.
Like,
we're trying to network to meet that one that's going to get you to.
And like, you know, and I think that's, you know, everybody goes through that, and I went through my phase of that.
Yes,
and
me too, man.
It's and it's, you know, it's common. It's just, especially like, I think it's one of those things that, especially for us that really want to be involved with ministry, we can start seeing like, oh, well, I can get here if I'm friends with this person.
Yeah.
You
so
know,
if they just know who I am, they know my name, if they see me.
Hey, look, I was in the green room. He looked at me, you know, like, oh, come on. Like, you know, and I think a lot of times humanity's lost in all of that. Like, they're just humans. They're just, you know, they have the same struggles as us. Yeah.
Right.
And so I think a lot of times, I think that's where I think I went wrong, is like I would idolize people that were like just chill people, like I would, like, you know, just have conversations, and I would idolize those people. And so then it would be like awkward. Like I'm sure you've experienced, you go to someone like, hi. And
so you get to the green room and you're like, oh, like this isn't what
you don't know what to say. And you just sit there, go like, I like your message. Like, yeah. I loved your sermon.
Right. And they're like, okay.
Cool.
Like, it's not going to be like this thunder that comes from heaven.
Yeah. Please pass your anointing. I need your mantle.
If you just touch my hand, I have it too.
Yes. And so I think, you know, we all went through that. But I think the thing I realized too is like, I had some friendships that really like turned me into who I am today.
Yeah,
and it was through the church. And I think me and Vinny had a conversation 2 podcasts ago, or maybe it was Lance, where we were just talking about like, you know, I'm glad I grew up in church like that, because I had these relationships that like they were sometimes frustrating at times because I was so young and like and just ready to go, like let's go. And I think I was being kind of not stopped, but I was being like cautioned by people. And then those people ended up being my best friends down the road. Because they were willing to, like, they were seeing a better purpose in me that I wasn't seeing. And I was just seeing like motion, like I just things go. And they were like, hold on.
Slow your roll.
Yeah. So have you dealt with that before? Like, have you gone through those 2 seasons where like people kind of like, I guess, speak into your life, not negatively, but are like, hey, like caution.
Yeah.
And then like, how have you like processed that? Cause I know for me, initially I was like, who are you? Like, you know, and I think, but then especially in the confines of the church, like everybody does end up wanting the better for people. And so I think having that mindset, you know, kind of helps, you know?
I've had like 2 sides of it. So I had like the person that was like, you'll never amount to anything. And I was an intern and they were supposed to be the person that was pouring into me. So they're like, you should have went to college. You're not going to amount to anything. And so I took those words and I almost made a vow that was like, watch me. Like I marked this day. So then it turned into striving and trying to force something to happen instead of like just, you know, yielding to what God wanted. So it was that aspect where I listened to that voice instead of saying, well, I know who God said I am and what I'm supposed to do. And so I'm going to go by that. But then there's also been the other side where they're like, man, like you're immature, you talk too much, you need to like slow down, listen, and you know, listen to what people are telling you. And so at first I was salty. I was like, excuse me, like you said, like who are you to tell me? But then I'd go back and like dwell on it or think about it. And I'm like, man, they were kind of right though. And so I took that, ran with it, and then I did become a better person because of it.
And it's funny you say that because I had a very similar experience. I was in a ministry school and things happened and there was just a lot of craziness that went down and I ended up getting really hurt by some of it. And like, I was very hurt, like to a point because someone had basically said like, hey, you're never going to amount to anything. Like you can't learn well. Like just berated me. And it was in like a leadership meeting with other, and they were just piling on me. And but here's the thing. I went in that kind of just as like a 17, 18-year-old, just like, I just sat on the couch, just you know, I got it is like whatever, like just hit me. And so like I was very like I guess on the attack and like very like defensive,
like guarded.
Yeah, very guarded. And what happened was like I mean I think I've talked about it before, but like I went and watched RoboCop. Like I just drove 45 minutes away, go watch RoboCop. It was in theaters, and like I'm just sitting there like, God, why am I even wanting to be in ministry? Like what is even the purpose of this? Like I'd rather just do something else. Like I'd rather work at McDonald's at this point. Like I don't want to work with these people. Like
I've been there, man.
Yeah, it's like why would I, you know, why? And so I had this just crazy moment. And then what's funny is I had a similar attitude to you, and it's what kind of got me through it. And then I grew out of it. But I literally go, you know what? I'm going to be a monument to those people saying I couldn't achieve anything. I'll be a monument saying I can and you were wrong. And so like that got me through about a year or two. I got on a different journey. Like I started like actually loving ministry, went full time in the ministry. And like, honestly, like that's kind of like why I am who I am today is because like instead of giving into it and like those people, like they meant the best. And the problem was I wasn't ready to receive what they were giving me.
And they probably could have worded it differently.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, like
they were trying to be, they felt like they had to be harsh to me to get through to me. And you know, and I get where they were coming from. So like now I have no resentment, like everything's good. But for me, I just wasn't ready to hear it. And they were, and now I look at them like, hey, relationship's fine. There's no issues there. Like there's no like weirdness. Like I've been around all those people now. Like there's no, so the cool thing about it is that now like what I felt like was kind of like I could say a derailment was actually put me on track and like actually made me a better person, made me understand ministry better and realize like, hey, ministry isn't about me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that was my problem is I was basing everything on my status and my, like what I was doing. It's like, no, it doesn't matter. Like it just matters that the mission's going forward, you know, that the people are getting saved. And so I think that's where like the tension was for me was like, I think I was personalizing things too much. And those people kind of woke me up to go, hey, this isn't about you. And that's where I think like I started growing a lot.
Well, and then you hear like those people that say that some people have a thicker skull, like you don't get it, strong willed. So sometimes you do need a good like
Yes.
And then we all had that teacher in school that was like very hard. Like you have to do this and you have to do that. And they always said afterwards, we did that because we wanted to push you and we knew you had it in you.
Yeah.
And so I think in those situations, they know we have it in us. And so they're like, you just need a extra.
Yeah. And I think even in the church, even more so, because people can see like, hey, like you have a calling, like you have a gift. And I think what's funny is a lot of times I've seen it in leaders, I've even seen it myself sometimes, is like when you look at somebody that's like very called, very gifted, but they're like doing dumb stuff.
Yes.
There's something that in you gets like almost agitated at a spiritual level where you're like
you dummy.
Just see it. Like you could be so like you could do so much more.
If you
like
got it together. Like get it together, right?
And so it's funny because now I've started to see that somewhat in my life as I've gotten older, like in younger people. And it's funny because I'm going, wow, like I understand so much now where people were coming from, even not even leaders, but even friends in my life that were older than me that had been through it, going like, hey man, like you don't want to do that. I'm like, what do you mean I want to do it? Like you did it. They're like, yeah, but like, look,
because they were tainted.
Yeah. And so like, and then I saw it as a bad thing. And then now like I look back and go, man, that person was like 100% right. Like, yeah, not only they were 100% right, like they almost had like foresight to see what was going to happen. And, and I think that's the thing. A lot of times is the tension is, with friends, with leaders, like in especially in ministry, it's just like, they might feel something and then it's like I have to recognize that and then I have to at least respect it. Like one thing I know now in my life is like I heed everyone's advice. I don't take anyone's advice verbatim anymore because, we grow and like we have life experiences. And there are some people that I do like fully respect where I actually will. If they say to do something, I'll just do it because like they have more wisdom than me.
They have the credibility, the wisdom. Yeah. God strategically put them in your life.
Right. And like, but then there's other people like peer to peer and other people where it's like, okay, like, let me hear it. Yeah. and I'll have to process. Right. And so I have a really good friend who, he has to process things. So like, in the moment, he kind of might shut down sometimes, and so like we'll spend 5 hours sometimes on the phone talking about stuff because like he has to process, and then it helps me because then I'm going, okay, how do I accurately get these things across to someone who's processing? Because like someone like me, I can just hear one thing, I don't need to process it. I just okay, let's do it. Other people have to be able to process. So as someone who's very much just a one word person. I need to know how to communicate to people who have to process things. Right. Because then I have to respect their process. I think that's one thing I learned a lot too is like, you have to respect your friend's process. Like they may not see things as quickly as you. I think that can cause pain in relationships. Yeah, that's good. It's where you're like, hey, I see this, they don't see this. What are they doing with their life? And all it is like, hey, you're just there. And I think Vinny talked about it on Tuesday Encouragement recently. Like, you there's some people where like in a relationship, like you're listening to them, and there's some people that you're giving advice to, and sometimes it's the same person, and sometimes different people. And I think that's really key for us is to understand, like, hey, we sometimes have roles in relationships, and other people have roles with us. And saying, hey, like, I don't know about that. And there's some people that are just like, just encouragers, right? They're like, it's like maybe the wrong thing. They're just like, go for it, go for it.
Yeah, you got this.
Yeah, like, and it's like, just because they want to make you the better person, like they want you to have self-confidence. Right. And so I think we have to always start to like, weigh the voices, but also don't discard them. Because when you discard voices, it's like, then you almost become impenetrable. Well, and then know it all person. Yeah, know it all. And then it's like when God tries to speak to you, what if he's trying to speak to you through that person? Right. So now he can't speak to you because you become an impenetrable fortress where you just like, I don't hear anybody. Right. And it's like, well, he's trying to speak, like this person's telling you what to do, and you're like, no, I can't hear him. Yes. And so I think that's one thing we have to walk through in our lives and kind of, tread lightly on, So also with that is like, there's going to be people that are meant to correct us and then do constructive criticism. So we have to be able to take it. Because if not, then we come to that spot where we're unteachable. Oh, yeah. And then once you become unteachable, then that's when your growth stops. And God put people in our lives and friends that we're supposed to make so that we're able to grow. Yeah. Because even like we talked about like church hurt a while back. And like one of the things is like the way you guys ended up here was kind of came out of a rough situation. Yes. Right. And like multiple rough situations. Yes. and then you ended up basically coming here and then getting healing through that. Right. And then now you're walking in different callings and things that you've meant to do for a while, but like maybe that hurt had kept you from. Yes. And kind of stifled it. Right. And so you look at it though, all those relationships led up to like this point, you know? And so as you've walked through that, it's cool because like at now, like you're so free from it, but you walked in that freedom because of a relationship that got you here.
Yes.
They got you relationships that then you allowed people to speak into your life again, you know, leaders. Cause like you talked about it on that episode about how, you know, you had allowed people like in a leadership position to pour into you and correct you.
Right.
And that is something that, you know, you needed, right? And that's something that, hey, you ended up here through a relationship, you know?
Right.
I mean, it's good to look at. You know?
And it could be hard to get the correction, but if you really like you said, chew the meat, spit out the bones, and like, okay, so what are they trying to see? What's the theme here?
Right.
Then you can apply it and get better from it.
Yeah.
But also, how crucial it is to trust in God with our relationships that he sends our way. Because there's going to be a Judas, you know, even Jesus, he was perfect.
Right.
And he still has someone, you know, and it was needed. And so in our lives, we're going to have people that let us down and stuff, but we're also going to have relationships that are crucial to our development. And if we can trust God in that, then we'll be able to thrive. But then there's those people that are so hurt that they don't want friends, they don't want relationships, so then they just are stunted in their growth.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that what it boils down to is like you have to steward relationships in your life. Like, you know, because I mean, the base of the Bible, everything is, hey, be a good steward of this, be a good steward of this, you know, all the talents and this one did this and this one didn't do this. It's like, I think it all boils down to, you know, people come into our lives and, you know, the way in which we steward every person is going to be different, you know?
Right.
And I think that's something that, you know, we've all walked through and we're still walking through with people. And it's like you said, the Judas thing is like, yeah. And I think what I've noticed too is a lot of times it's like, I have to stop viewing people through lenses that like where I've kind of almost like conditioned myself to be like, you know, they're acting this way. Like, well, this one person acted this way a while back. So now I categorize that person with that person.
Right.
And then
you bring it to the next relationship.
You're bringing baggage from another relationship just because it's a little bit similar. And I think that's how we kind of like almost stunt our growth. We stunt their growth. Because, you know, our decisions in relationships sometimes can hurt other people.
Right.
And that's what I've noticed is like, I mean, and I've had it done to me and I've done it to other people, you know, just because, and it's like, I'll cut off a relationship that shouldn't have been cut off. And it's just because I got hurt in it or I felt like
scared or something. Yeah.
And it's like, man, why did I do that? And then you look back and you're like, man, like that person really needed me at this point, or I really needed that person. You know, and so have you kind of gone through that type of stuff before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where I was like, man, I needed that person, but because of my own stupidity or pride, you know, like, or I was scared that what happened before was going to happen again. So then I was like, no, I'm going to push you away. And the Lord was like, that was supposed to be a covenant friendship.
Right.
But the cool thing is, if you don't burn bridges, or even if you do, you can always try to restore a relationship.
Yeah, so. And I think, I mean, that is one thing is, you know, when you're leaving a place or even a relationship thing, you know, you try to leave the best you can.
Right.
Sometimes it's one of those things where, hey, it's in the middle of the night, we got to go, get out. You know, we've all been through there. It's like, this has to end. And it ends. And, you know, I think that what you're saying is like, and I've seen in my life is like, sometimes restoration is going to take time, but I have to be willing for the restoration. Because I think a lot of times, you know, people, and I know people are like, I'm just going to burn this. Like, screw this. Like, this is over. Hurt,
so they want them to feel it. You know?
Exactly. It's like, hey, you're going to feel what I feel. It's like, no, like, that's not okay. And I think we have to prevent ourselves from getting to that point. But then also understanding, you know, because we are human, sometimes we will get to that point and we will burn something. And then we have to be okay with whatever the steps are
to get back.
If
you can, sometimes you can't.
Yeah, sometimes you can't. And I think that, you know, it's two sides. It's like, do what you can to get there. Like, if you got to apologize, if you have to be the bigger person, then do that. But then, like, at some point, when you're trying to restore something that's just going to be dead, know when to stop. Right. Because you could end up hurting yourself even further and that person if you just keep knocking.
That's not going to.
And nothing's going to happen.
Yes.
So I think that, and that's a tough thing. I think we've all dealt with it. It's like, you know, relationships are places where you're like, it had a place in your heart. They had a place in your heart. And then it's just over and you're trying to sit there trying to pick up the pieces and they've moved on. Like, I'm sure you've been through kind of things like that where it's like, you're still just messed up
And then they're sitting there chilling and doing all the things. You're like, how?
Yeah. And I think that's tough too, because then it's like we're carrying a burden. Someone's already gone. Like they're already past
I'm not even thinking about you. And that person is like drowning.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's definitely a tough balance, but it's one of those things. Yeah,
and then also learning how to categorize our friends. Because like I said with myself, I had to learn that not everyone's my best friend. Not everyone's going to like me. Good. And so friends are here for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. So we got to figure out that. Yeah. And if they're there just for a season,
right,
you can't like force it to make it be longer. Yeah. It was just for a season to maybe get you to where you needed to go.
Yeah.
For a reason. Yeah. Maybe they were there to show you a lesson that you needed to know. And then a lifetime covenant friendships are the ones that you run with.
Yeah, that's good.
And invest all your time and look at Jesus. He had, he categorized it too. He had the 3 that were the closest, the 12, and then 60. And so
I mean, and I think that it looks at the inner circle, the outer circle, having that and understanding like. Yeah, there's some conversations that you just don't have with
people. The ones that are outside, that more like acquaintances.
Yeah, and and there might be a season where they become close, and then a season where they become acquaintances. Like,
right.
And I think the other thing too is like never getting frustrated when people shift to that point.
Right.
Like, because I've had close friends, like really close friends, grow distant, and it was nothing to do with me. It was to do with situations in their life. Like they just got to a place and so and sometimes it had nothing to do with me. It was just, they were so busy and then I got hurt over it. And it was like,
they forgot about me. Or
and I'm like sitting there like, man, like I wish I wouldn't have taken on that pain or that thing because they didn't mean anything by it. I think so that, it's just one of those things that, as we kind of wrap up is like understanding the dynamics of like the relationships that we're in and understanding like sometimes like, I think the other thing too is expectations.
Right. We can have too high of
my goodness.
And no one can meet it. That was me.
And I mean, I've been the same way. Like, I'm in relationships, I feel like I give a lot. And so I think a lot of times when I just give, I'm not getting stuff back. And so I end up hurting myself because I just give. And I'm sitting there dry at the end of the day. I'm like, when am I going to get back? Like, when am I going to get a little bit of insight, anything? Like, and it's like, I think sometimes we just have to see our roles in those things and also understand like, hey, some people, they just need us to give to them. And no expectations.
In that season. Maybe, you're sowing the seed.
Yeah.
But like I always tell my husband, like, I thought that person would do it the way that I would do it or had my heart. And he goes, not everyone has looks at the friendship or the thing the same way that you do.
That's good.
So you can't have that expectation that people are going to treat you or the situation the same way that you would. Yeah. And I'm like, that's so true. Yeah. But I have to still remind myself that because I'm like, I gave my all. But
I mean, that's a hard one for sure. So, but well, I think we're kind of there. So cool.
Just basically letting everyone know that relationships are good and that they can be crucial to your development and growth.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we'll see you next time.
Bye.